At St. Louis Acura, our customer-focused approach keeps earning us more inventory. As others increase their fees and take advantage of limited inventory, we keep our prices low because we remain committed to becoming better than ever and treating you as we want to be treated. We want you coming back and sending your friends and family to a veteran-owned, family-based business you can trust. Blessings for a wonderful holiday season and a prosperous new year from our families to yours. St. Louis Acura, better than ever for you.
Hey, what's going on? Happy New Year from us here at Claibs Online. This is Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Munganess St. Louis Acura, and sponsored by the home loan expert, Ryan Kelly. I'm Joe Roderick, joined alongside by Mike Claiborne. Claibs, what's going on?
Well, as you can see, we have a little construction going on here at my place, and we got to get a few things moved around. I would probably be more active if it wasn't so cold outside, because when it gets this cold, I don't function very well. So other than that, holidays were good. No complaints on that front. We had some good sports to watch, a lot of things to talk about in between. So I'm ready, rip running, ready to go for 2022.
Yeah, if you would, if it wasn't for this enormous backdrop that I have from Fast Signs of Bridgeton, you would just see a mess behind me as well. But it hides an awful lot having this much behind me.
Well, I had the same thing in mind, but I have too much mess to put my backdrop up, so that's what I'm dealing with. But I guarantee you, the next time you see me in this situation, I will be rip roaring and ready to go.
You know, you mentioned how cold it is outside today. Last night, I ran a 5K through the shrine, the Our Lady of the Snow Shrine. It was 15 degrees. I think.
Why?
It fell.
Why?
It is you know what? It's a nice event that they put on out there at the shrine. They turn all the lights on, the way of lights out there. They put all of them on. So you run through all of the Christmas lights before they take them all down. So it's a nice little thing to do. When I did it 2 years ago, it was 40 degrees. That was manageable. Last night, as I walked out there, I looked at my phone and it said it felt like 12 degrees. So, yeah, it was a cold one.
I would commend you, but I kind of question the sanity here.
You know what? Now I got to keep doing it, though, because this is the second time I've finished first in my age group.
So now it's three of you in that age group.
There were eight. There were eight of us in this one, and I beat second place by 10 minutes. So I could have ran a lot slower. I could have even walked at some points if I wanted to in yesterday's race. But now I got to keep doing it again until I don't get that. So I just got to keep defending that title now that. But still, hey, it was a lot warmer here than it was up in Minnesota this weekend.
Man.
I don't understand how. Okay, it's a nice city. It is. I've been up there now. I've been up there in February, and I've been up there in September. It's a much different place in September than it is in February. I don't understand how the city of Minneapolis keeps getting events like they did with the Super Bowl a few years ago, and now with this when it's so damn cold up there. I mean, that was brutal. You could not have paid me to go up there to watch that event this weekend.
Well, you could have paid me a lot of money, not just any amount of money. But I think the bigger question is, how do you build a stadium, a baseball stadium in Minneapolis, and you don't have a roof on it? I mean, you know, with technology today, there's no excuse for not having a roof on it. I mean, you want your customers to be comfortable. There's no way anybody can say they were comfortable on Saturday night. Now, having said that, I admire them for doing it. You never see me doing it. And if you were a Blues fan, you probably enjoyed it even more. If you're a Minnesota Wild fan, you're probably saying this is a waste of time and energy.
Yeah, for them, I mean, you know, for the Minnesotites, whatever they are, they want to be referred to up there. I'm sure, you know, many of them have gone to outdoor hockey games before. So being a part of that was
nothing to that level, though. Nothing to that level.
So it was, you know, in the state of hockey to have that there for the first time, it was neat. And the weather, I mean, having snow for a winter classic. Hey. Having snow for a winter classic is always nice, but yeah, when you're talking negative temperatures, it's a little crazy. Have you been to that ballpark yet? Have you?
Yeah, we were there. Okay. 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Yeah, it's a nice park. I mean, I think the issue I would have with it, like a lot of these parks have these fences that, a guy can scale and maybe take a home run away. That's not the case in Minnesota. They got some pretty high walls there, especially I think down the right field line. But other than that, I think it's a nice park. It's a nice park. It's easy to get to. It's downtown. Yeah, it's not bad.
So I know you went to the Winter Classic when it was here in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Have you been to any of the other outdoor games that they've
I went
hosted?
to the one at Wrigley Field.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
Is
Wrigley
there
Field. It's just as bad in the winter as it is in the summer.
Of all of the venues, stadiums that you've been to for baseball or football, is there an outdoor place that you would like to see a future Winter Classic held at?
No. And here's why. Unless you're in a ballpark that's got a really big scoreboard, a high definition scoreboard, it's really hard to watch a game because you are so far away from the action. It's like back in the early days of the Tampa Bay Lightning, they played in a ballpark before they moved into the arena. And you are basically so far away from a press box standpoint and from a fan standpoint, you're kind of on an island. So I don't think it's a great viewing issue because there is no good sight line. I mean, you're that far away. So that's what I'm saying. You have to have a good scoreboard where you can probably follow the game better there because you're just so far away. And from a broadcasting standpoint, it's even more difficult unless they give you some sort of perch where you can sit in near the ice. But, overall, I just don't think it's good for viewing. But obviously somebody thought it was a good idea because they keep doing it.
Yeah, seeing the pictures from friends that were there for the Winter Classic in St. Louis and were also up there for the game in Minnesota this weekend. This is definitely a made-for-TV event with all of the scenery and just seeing and pictures of an ice rink in the middle of a baseball field and the surrounding areas of an open, an outside hockey game. And then seeing how far away you are from it. It's made for TV, but you're going to sell 45,000 tickets to every one of these.
And, I think even for TV, it's a little bit of a challenge. I thought TNT had some real shaky shots early in the game. Maybe the weather had something to do with it. It just seemed like they were having a hard time following the puck. But, again, maybe weather had more to do with that than anything else. The coolest thing about the whole event was that shot of the Blues players coming out of the hotel like they were going to a beach party with the shorts and the summer shirts, and somebody had a cooler, the sunglasses. I thought that was a riot. And Parayko walks in the ballpark with a Wainwright jersey on. That to me is why hockey players, in my opinion, are the most fun group of guys to be around, period. I don't think there's anybody close when it comes to having a good time and also getting your work in. I just think hockey players have figured it out.
And I saw O'Reilly's comments on that it was just kind of thrown together last minute, that they wanted to do something fun. They wanted to do something that would be memorable, and they couldn't come up with anything. And it was kind of last minute in a group text. They thought, what about beachwear?
Well, it worked. It got my attention, and it was really the talk of the town. And probably, aside from the game, probably the most talked about item. People talk about the weather, but if you're sitting at home watching these guys, it was priceless. It was priceless. So I tip my cap to the Blues and how quickly they put it together and how much fun they appeared to have.
And you're talking about what they were wearing, the jerseys for the Blues, the sweaters that they were wearing. And in this Winter Classic and in the last one, I know we have become fan favorites of that. The blue color on those is just so appealing. I don't know about making it a permanent fixture, but it is fun to see in these special events.
Well, it's a shade lighter than what the original Blues logo would look like. Okay, it's just a shade lighter. And if I'm not mistaken, at one point that was the Blues road uniform. I'm just trying to remember the era. It might have been right around that 1979-80 run. Jorgen Pettersson was on that team and some other guys. They had uniforms very similar to what we saw Saturday night.
I really like the Wild's uniforms too on Saturday.
Yeah.
I like the brown pants are what did it for the shorts, or what did it for me. Really setting that one
Well,
off.
they're different. There's no doubt about it. And it kind of took me back to when the California Golden Seals had a uniform similar to that when they were playing in the National Hockey League. So a little bit of a throwback going on there. And I think for the first time in a long time, we've seen some people or a league try some different looking uniforms. They actually worked. I mean, we talked about baseball and how they've messed things up. The NFL doesn't really have that sort of platform anymore. And the NBA, you just never know what they're going to show up with. Although the NBA did one thing with that regard to their All-Star game, I think they should do more of, and I think we should see it around the other sports. Their warm-up uniforms. This is a couple years ago. Right here on the breast side, the left side of the breast pocket, it was logos of your accomplishments: MVP, NBA champion, multiple-time All-Star. Everything you could win in the league, you would decorate. It was like a military uniform, which I thought was cool to say, hey, these are the best of the best. And if you're a young player, you want to say to yourself, I want to have a jacket like that. I want to have a warm-up jacket like that at some point. I think I'd like to see other teams do that just to show the accomplishments of these players and what they've been able to do.
Yeah, those are, and then when you get guys like Kobe or LeBron out there with just an entire,
they look like
all the way,
4-star general. Yeah, you're right.
It was, I know what you're talking about. Those were pretty cool to see. Also, this weekend, before we get into some of the Sunday football, on Friday night, New Year's Eve was the night of the college football playoffs. At two games that, I mean, they were over very soon after they both
after the coin toss.
And the SEC proved to be a monster that neither Cincinnati or Michigan could handle this weekend. And now we get a rematch of the SEC championship game.
You know what was really puzzling, and why I think we all felt Cincinnati was going to have a problem no matter what. I thought Cincinnati played better than Michigan did. And here's Michigan. Okay, this is one of the alleged storied franchises of college sports, college football especially. They have a big win against Ohio State. They had a really good season, and everybody was kind of subtly pulling for them to break through. They might as well be Notre Dame when it comes to this tournament. I mean, Notre Dame is this storied franchise that everybody kind of roots for, and they get in the playoffs and they get waxed. And just like we saw with Michigan, so maybe Michigan and Notre Dame should start playing. Well, they do play each other, but maybe they need to figure something out because they cannot get over the hump. And for Michigan to lay the egg that they did with all the work that they put in, and as I mentioned, a lot of people rooting for them. Man, they might have been better off having Ohio State in that thing the way they played against Utah.
Yeah, so anytime Nick Saban seems to get more than 2 weeks to prepare for a team, you know that Alabama's going to come out there and play really, really good football. And they're going to be ready for whatever the other team has to throw at them. And that's what you saw. And that's why I think that it was, Alabama was always going to be the heavy favorites. If you had just 1 week to prepare, maybe Cincinnati's able to come out there and shock them with a little something more. But with Nick Saban's and the way that he just gets his team ready for a game, there was no doubt in my mind that Alabama was going to win that and win by a lot and win in the fashion that they did. But for Georgia to come out after the talk was they didn't beat anybody all year. The one, the big game that they played against Alabama, they weren't ready for that. Michigan had the win over Ohio State on their schedule. I was just shocked that Jim Harbaugh was as ill prepared as he was in that game, but a lot of credit goes to Georgia and being able to come out there and kind of revert back to that defense that they showed at many times this season and just shutting down that Michigan offense from the beginning.
Well, you make a great point. I think the Michigan offense never got rolling because the Georgia defense was really good. And let's throw this into the equation that Georgia's offense didn't have to go 90 yards or 80 yards for a touchdown. They were in pretty good field position most of the night. And I think that really kept Michigan with their back to the wall. And they never recovered. They never had a plan B that really seemed to work. And I think one of the things that stood out for me, Aiden Hutchinson is considered by some to be the best player in this year's draft. And they're making comparisons. He reminds you of the Bosa brothers. You know who he reminded me of? And this may be before your time, Mike Mamula. Mike Mamula was like the sixth player taken in the draft by the Philadelphia Eagles one year, and he passed all the tests, all the stats. You know, he was an analytic guy. He's a little undersized, but everybody thought, man, he was a combine wonder, more or less. He got to the NFL, and he was getting his ass handed to him virtually every play. And Aiden Hutchinson, I think he ended up being in on 4 tackles. None of them were for significant losses. And I'm saying to myself, if he's having a problem against a guy from Georgia, and they moved him around, so I won't say it was one player that dominated him. I'm scared to think about what happens if he gets taken too high in the draft and they put him on the line against some of these good tackles in the NFL.
We'll have a preview of the championship game next Monday. That's when Georgia and Alabama face off in Indianapolis, the home of this year's national championship game at Lucas Oil Field. But looking back and seeing the way that those two games were played, blowouts in each one of them, and all of the talk for an expanded playoff, I don't know what that changed. I mean, Georgia and Alabama are clearly 1A and 1B. 1 and 2 in this year's playoff. Notre Dame, I guess, was the 5th team. They were the first ones out in this. Would Notre Dame have put up a fight against either Georgia or Alabama in that? Who was number 6? Was it Oklahoma State or Baylor? Yeah. Well, was number 6? I mean, I don't think know.
Teams would have had much more of a chance. Here's something that we need to take into account. And you make a great point about this expansion. I think with the transfer portal and its impact and the name and likeness, it's going to change the game as far as recruiting is concerned. I'm not sure if we're going to have a dominant 4 or 6 teams anymore. I really think it's going to be spread out even more. So for us to try and scuffle and find 6 teams or 8 teams only to have one destroy number 8 because number 8 had no business there, or I had no business thinking that they were as good as an L1. I don't know if that's the best thing for college football. And, I know some would say, well, anything can happen on Saturday. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it could, but it won't. And that's an interesting point you make on how deep does this playoff situation need to go.
And in those, we've seen players immediately enter the transfer portal and choose new teams. In Mizzou's case, they just got a defensive lineman from Oklahoma State enter the transfer portal and immediately jump on with Mizzou. But something to go back to with this, if you do expand the playoffs, you have more meaningful games. Kirk Herbstreit this past weekend made comments about how players don't love football like they used to. And that's why we're seeing players opting out of some of these bowl games this week. And that was met with a lot of criticism this weekend. Yeah, your thoughts on what he had to say?
Well, he kind of cleaned it up since he said it initially. I found that hard to believe that somebody doesn't, you love the game just because they don't want to play in that situation. And we got to get out of this mindset of thinking that everything is good in college football for Old State U. As long as you're playing for someone else and you're playing for free, then people have this tendency to think that they have ownership over you. And how dare you not want to play for Old State U or whomever when we have this bowl game on the line. At some point, the player has to start thinking about taking care of himself. And the difference between these kids and guys in the pros are being compensated. The pros have an option on whether they want to play or not as far as what teams they want to play for once they become free agents. So it's a little bit of a different scope I would look through in order to really assess what this is all about. I think at this point, with the way this money's going around and the opportunity for kids to have a chance to have a professional career, and remind you, most of them won't, but the ones who do will have a chance to make more money than they're going to make in their entry-level job in some other corporation. So I don't really have a problem with it. I think what it also says is coaches, when they get to this level, they need to look around and see, all right, who's ready to replace this guy? If you have a running back, or if you got a left tackle, or if you got a receiver or a quarterback, you better have somebody who's good enough to step in and give you a chance to win, which means that player is going to start getting more reps in practice down the road, especially later in the year. But I don't have a problem with it. I think those guys were really off base in how they assessed it because they were thinking of themselves, much like the players are.
This is Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, sponsored by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Find him online at thehomeloanexpert.com. Also driven by Mungenast St. Louis Acura. And hey, right now at Mungenast St. Louis Acura, they have a 2021 GMC Yukon SLT in stock with only 4,000 miles on the car right now. You can head over to their website at stlouisacura.com and see all of the details about this 2021 pre-owned Yukon SLT SUV. See what all of the pricing is on that and make an appointment to go out there and see that car out at 13720 Manchester Road in St. Louis. Or hey, if you hit me up, I will give you the number of Jamie Burkhardt and you can contact him directly and find out all the information you need on that 2021 Yukon there at Mungenast St. Louis Acura on the out there on the lot right now. Not a whole lot of those 2021s and 2022s there on any lots in any dealerships in St. Louis, but they have that sitting there right now, and they are that's going to find a home real quick. So if you want that, if that's something you're looking for, make sure you get in touch with them very, very soon. Plenty of NFL news and notes to talk about. Plus, we'll go over our picks and look at the new standings with a brand new number one in the standings too for this week. But first, before we do that, a quick.
The future of electric vehicles is beginning to grow across the Midwest, but there's a lot of work to be done before most people will feel comfortable switching from gas to EV. Ameren, Illinois President and Chairman Richard Mark gives us some insight into how they're preparing by adding more electric vehicle charging stations.
Our vision is to basically have charging stations every 60 miles or so, from Cook County all the way to the tip of the state down to the Kentucky area, and then across the state, east and west, going toward Kansas and Iowa to the west, and going toward Indiana to the east. And so we feel that within the next few years we'll probably add, we're hoping to add 60 to 70 a year over the next 5 years to really complete that infrastructure for the entire Midwest. In fact, the Midwest now has all the utilities in the Midwest are joining together to coordinate that. So, which is the first time it's ever happened that you've had Wisconsin say, okay, we're going to build our charging stations here, and Illinois say, okay, well, we can tap on here, and Missouri, this makes sense for us. So we can expand that north, south, east, and west by coordinating with the other utilities.
There you go, a new feature here on ClaibsOnline.com, the Ameren, Illinois Minute. Plenty of those to show you each and every week, and also available on the brand new looking ClaibsOnline.com. If you haven't checked that out yet, go ahead and do so later on today. ClaibsOnline.com has all of the podcast videos, everything you need for all of our shows each and every week, which includes a new episode of Huddle Up with Howard. Last week, you guys got together and previewed the college football playoff games. Are you guys going to be meeting up again this week?
Oh, yeah. We got a lot to talk about. We've got the college game that's coming up, the championship game, and then we've got the final weekend of the pro football season. And I told you this at the beginning of the year. You never bet the first or last week of the season because anything can happen. And this is one of the neat things the NFL has working. There's always a team that has to win or go home. There's always a team that's got to watch the scoreboard and hope for some help. And there's always a team that thought they were in and because they've been playing well, but just couldn't find a way to win one more game. So there's a lot going on this weekend. I'll be interested to see what the flex game with NBC would be. I would think it's got to be.
They've already announced it.
Who is it? The Raiders?
Raiders and Chargers.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Okay. Game. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, they've already announced that. They already moved 2 games to Saturday. Chiefs and Broncos is Saturday, and then Cowboys Eagles is also on Saturday, which kind of leads to what you were saying about, you play those games. If the Cowboys win that game, that puts a lot of pressure on the Packers, right? No, I don't think it does anymore. No, the Packers
have home field all the way through.
Yeah, they have that home field because the Cowboys lost yesterday, but the Chiefs, I should say, Chiefs win that game, puts the pressure on the Titans to win their game.
By the way, you mentioned the Titans. This is a team that lost the best rusher in the game, and they're playing for home field advantage.
They lost a game earlier in the season to the Texans, and that's who they played this. They lost to the Texans in Nashville, and now they have to go down to Houston and beat the Texans this weekend to secure home field.
Mike Vrabel, you got to think about him being coach of the year, man. I mean, we haven't gotten that far to get into that yet, but what he's been able to do when you lose your best rusher, the best rusher in the game, and you are a running team, and now you're playing to have home field advantage throughout, it says a lot about what that guy's made of and what he's been able to get out of his players.
Yeah, we had a few and clinching games this weekend. Tennessee, they're 11-5. Kansas City, we know they're in the playoffs. Cincinnati, they clinched the AFC North. Buffalo is in the playoffs right now in a virtual tie with New England for that spot. New England's already clinched theirs. And then you have the Colts, the Chargers, and the Raiders all sitting at 9-7 on the year. Depending on what Pittsburgh does tonight in their game, I don't know how the tiebreakers and everything play out, but if you have Pittsburgh at 7-7-1, Miami 8-8, Baltimore 8-8, there is a lot that could happen as far as tiebreakers go. And when the NFL sends that out each and every week, as far as all the scenarios go, those final 3 spots in the AFC for the playoffs are I guess, 2 spots in the AFC are up in the air right now with a lot of tiebreakers on the line.
Just win. All you have to do is just go out and win, play your game. And you know what, after that, it's up to whomever. But I think that's the adage you have to have. You can't scoreboard watch. You have to go out and do your job. And that's what I think we're going to see a lot of this weekend.
And then in the NFC, you have Green Bay. They've already clinched home field. The Rams are right now the 2 seed. Then Tampa sitting there and Dallas. Arizona's clinched the playoff spot. Somehow, Philadelphia is below San Francisco in the playoff standings, but Philadelphia has clinched a playoff spot. San Francisco has not, due to tiebreakers with the Saints. So San Francisco right now is sitting at the 5 seed. I'm sorry, at the 6 seed. They could be out of the playoffs, and the Saints could jump them for a playoff spot.
And the 49ers have the Rams this weekend, right?
I believe so, yeah.
That should be interesting. I mean, that rivalry is kind of like the Dodgers and the Giants. So not a lot of love lost. And now that the Rams are back, I'm sure that's heightened the situation a little bit more. So it'll be some good games this weekend. The Philadelphia, as a rookie coach who's come in, and he's done a pretty nice job with a guy in Jalen Hurts who has been hurt a little bit, but has really given this team a chance with his leadership skills. I mean, playing at Alabama and Oklahoma, one of the more popular players at both of those programs as far as his leadership, I think has kind of moved into the NFL where they trust him. And somehow this team is going to get in the playoffs. Now, how they're going to beat anybody, that's another story. But I think they really made some significant progress.
Did you see what happened last night when Hurts was walking off the field there? That's for a field that has already had issues with sewage running through and falling on the fans in the middle of games, for their barricades to just fall over. And you know what? I mean, those barricades aren't built to have thousands of pounds of people leaning up against it. That's not really fault of the stadium, but still, it's not a good look.
Well, you know what? You don't build them to hold back idiots of that magnitude, but apparently you did. And you're right. It's not their fault, but it's not the best look you want to have, because that took precedent over what they were able to do on the field more than anything else.
It could have. I mean, the way it fell on him too, it really could have hurt Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, that's true.
ACL or just anything, just having massive amounts of people falling on top of him at the end of a game. He's
already got massive people falling on him in the game. Now he's got to worry about fans as well. Yeah, that's not a good look. You're right.
And that's another one. The Eagles head coach, that's another one too. That could be up for coach of the year for the job that he's done with that team for as bad as they started off. And they probably, well, now that they've clinched a spot and the Dolphins lose this past week, I think the focus, one of the best trending teams is probably the Eagles. When you look at that, now that the Dolphins have need a lot of help to make the playoffs after their 7-game losing streak, followed by a 7-game winning streak, came to an end.
It's just, that's the thing about the NFL is the parity that exists. And those mediocre teams, I think Bill Parcells said it best. You finish where you're supposed to. And I think we're seeing a lot of mediocrity. So while we're on the subject of mediocrity, let's talk a little bit about coaches who you think might be in trouble. I think the guy in Chicago's done.
Yeah.
Vic Fangio might be in trouble in Denver. I think they're going to have a legitimate sit down in Seattle on whether Pete Carroll continues. Any other places you look at that you think maybe there might be a shuffle? Maybe Carolina. Although Carolina they couldn't decide on a quarterback. They went and got a guy they released. They haven't been able to keep McCaffrey on the field for any length of time. And then there have been some coaching calls you kind of have to wonder about. So maybe Rule's going to feel the heat a little bit. I think Joe Judge has got to be in trouble.
That's the one I was going to say. Joe Judge in a situation with Vic Fangio in Denver, they have to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback, because for the last 2 years now, I don't know if that's if that's a John Elway situation.
Yeah, it's Elway. No, hold on.
They have to figure out who the quarterback's going to be, because John Elway, since he has been running that team and running the personnel on the field for so many years, the only good quarterback they've had is Peyton Manning. And he's Peyton Manning. You can't screw that up.
Right.
That's every other choice that they have made at quarterback has been a huge question mark.
Didn't they draft 2 quarterbacks in the first round? Paxton Lynch, and who was the other big tall glass of water that they took?
Osweiler.
Yeah, Osweiler. They took 2 quarterbacks in the first round. They took Drew Lock in the second round. They have a first round pick in Teddy Bridgewater quarterbacking them now.
Was Flacco there last year?
Flacco was there as well. So, the pattern here is Elway might have been a great quarterback. I'm not sure if he's a great front office guy when you think about some of the other guys that have slipped through there. When you think about the defensive end that they let slip out of there that went to Baltimore, I know he's a legend there, but I think if John Elway was anywhere else, he'd be out of a job.
And that's he recruited. It was because of John Elway that they were able to recruit Peyton Manning to come to Denver. Is that something they could do with Aaron Rodgers next year? Is Aaron Rodgers a guy that John Elway can recruit to come?
Oh, I think so.
Denver?
Yeah, I think so.
So does that save everybody's job if you put Aaron Rodgers there for 2 years?
I think they need help in some areas, though. They've got Jerry Jeudy who can run like the wind. Okay. He can flat out run. They need a little bit more help as far as the running game is concerned. But I think overall, they're not a bad team. Defensively, they've been okay. Fangio was a good defensive coach, good defensive coordinator. Defense has been okay. Offense has just not had enough weapons. Bridgewater did a nice job in not losing games, but they just didn't have the put-away ability that they're going to need if you want to be successful in the NFL.
With the Giants and Joe Judge, that's just been a mess. It's another situation where you get a guy coming from Bill Belichick's tree that gets a head coaching job and isn't successful. And we've seen this time and time again. Charlie Weiss, Romeo Crennel, Josh McDaniels, all of these guys that have come from, or who was the guy that was down in Texas for so long? O'Brien or
Bill O'Brien?
Yeah, the struggles that he had and the way that ended down there in Texas. It's just over and over again that guys leave the Patriot system. They try to create Matt Patricia in Detroit. Yeah, and
the one guy though I think might break that streak. I think Brian Flores is doing a decent job. I know they've had a hot streak and cold streak, but I like their direction and what they're trying to do. Now, they need another good draft and maybe a free agent signing or two and make a firm decision on whether Tua is their guy. I happen to think he is. But Flores may break that streak of a tree that isn't bearing positive fruit.
So you had this weekend, though, Daniel Jones, negative 10 yards passing. You and I passed for more yards this weekend than the Giants did.
Yeah, it's a mess, man. It's a mess. They haven't drafted well.
And I'm sorry, it was Mike Glennon. Mike Glennon was their quarterback this weekend. Which I don't know. Did you see the tweet Chris Long tweeted out about Robert Quinn that he broke the Bears all-time sack record by sacking Mike Glennon? He broke the Rams all-time or single season sack record by sacking Mike Glennon. So
yeah, I remember the year he broke that record. And the book on him was he had a health issue that was a red flag right before the draft. I think he had some sort of heart issue.
No,
brain tumor. You're right.
Brain tumor, yeah.
And this guy's been nothing but good since he's been in the league. And he is a bona fide pass rusher. And I thought that year when he was with the Rams, he could have broke Strayhorn's record, which I always would look at being tainted because Brett Favre rolled over for him to make sure he got the record, which I thought was an embarrassment to his teammates, where that left tackle was playing his ass off, and now you want to give up a free one. And guess what? They'll remember me for giving it up more than they're going to remember Brett Favre for laying down. But with that said, Quinn's been a solid player everywhere he's been. He may not play the run as well as you like to, but you know what? He's going to make at least one big play every game he steps on the field.
Let's look at our picks for this past week. 5 games on the schedule. Claibs, you never sent me your picks in the college game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know what? Yeah, you're right. So I'm really trailing by default more than the fact that Hoffman's that much better than me.
Who would you have picked? I know you would have gone Alabama.
I would have taken Alabama, Georgia.
Okay. So you would have been sitting there in first over one game. I had a terrible week. I've fallen way off, but as you can see there, I mean, it is as close as it's ever been the whole season right now between the 6 of us. We have taken Ben Boyd off the chart.
He's been relegated to another league.
And now that he's working for the Cardinals, he can join whatever pick'em league they have over there at Bush. So
they may
congratulations to Ben, by the way, on his new job over there with the Cardinals.
I'm excited to work with him. I've been working with Ben ever since he got back to St. Louis, and it'll be a great chapter in his career for sure.
So with the games we had the 2 college games on the schedule this weekend. Then we also went Titans, Dolphins, Raiders, Colts, and Cardinals, Cowboys. Claibs, all 5 of us, or all 6 of us, I should say, all picked the Cowboys. So we were all wrong on that one.
Well, why wouldn't you pick the Cowboys considering what they'd done the week before?
Yeah, and Brian Hoffman and I were the only ones that picked the Raiders. And then everybody except me and Andy Hanselman picked the Titans to win in that one. So by the way, I'm the only one that picked Michigan to win too. So I was off on that.
Well, that's a reason why you're a 500 guy right now.
Yeah. So I could be right up there if I would have taken the SEC team in that. So yeah, but so here we go. We have waited. We are 38 minutes into the show today. We have not mentioned his name once, and I have a feeling we had a lot to talk about when it comes to him. We talked all that NFL talk. Antonio Brown. Yesterday in a game in New York against the Jets, the Buccaneers were down in the first half. Antonio Brown gets into it with the coaching staff, gets into it on the sidelines, takes off his pads, takes off his shirt, takes off his gloves, and runs off the field at MetLife Stadium. And after gets on reports where he got into a police car that took him to the airport. There were pictures of him in an Uber where he was talking about his latest rap album that he's releasing. He has a new show on Netflix he's releasing. Just another saga in the storied career of Antonio Brown. It's clearly a mental health issue with the guy. He's got some demons that he has not addressed, and they popped up once again.
Well, you're right. He does have some mental issues that he needs to address, and I think the best way he can address them is not be allowed to play football again, because we've continued to enable him over the years. This isn't something new. When you think about his history of Michigan State, you think about his history with the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Oakland Raiders, the New England Patriots. I mean, and now Tampa. This has been an ongoing saga that doesn't have a good ending to it. And I look at it in two regards. One, he can never play in the league because he quit. He quit on his teammates who were depending on him. This is a team sport where you're counting on the guy next to you to do his job. For him to quit because he couldn't get balls, and granted, he had a $999,000 bonus on the line yesterday. All right. If he had one more touchdown reception, I think 80 yards in receiving, and there was one other stat that he could have achieved in one game.
It was one more touchdown, 8 more catches, and I think it was around 75 yards receiving. And if he would have hit each one of those, each one carried $350,000 in bonuses. And it was, I mean, I think it was very capable of hitting those not only this week, but next week too.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
He had those 2 weeks to hit those for the bonus. And when you think about it, he should have already been there. On his own accord, he got himself
but he's the reason
for 3 games because he turned in a fake vaccination card earlier this season, and the league suspended him for it. So any of this "woe is me" or any of this talk the Buccaneers did this on purpose so they wouldn't have to pay him. No, he missed 3 games this year because of his own stupidity and his own decision that he should have already probably had those numbers if he would have had 3 more games on his numbers this year.
I agree wholeheartedly. So I don't have any sympathy for him on that front. I think he needs to get some help, and obviously whatever help he's been afforded hasn't worked, and that's because there's always hope that he can play again. I think that's over with. I don't think he should play anymore. I think he should focus on the rest of his life because he has a very short shelf life of football left, and he needs to focus on what he's going to do beyond playing football, because I got news for you. The paychecks won't be as big in his next job as they will be in the one he currently had. He just lost. And he's got to figure out what to do. So the best way to get his attention is not allow him to do something that he can be good at. And it's time to move on. I mean, it's a subject that we almost talk about on an annual basis with him. I mean, every year there's something that comes up. So I'm done with the guy, and I hope he gets himself squared away. Well, you know what, to be honest with you, I really don't care. I think people who have mental illness in this situation who want help, they eventually get it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I root for anybody who's got it to get the help and get themselves squared away. But in this case, if Antonio Brown wasn't a good receiver, we wouldn't even be having this conversation, because there are millions of people who struggle with mental health in this country, or if not around the world, that aren't afforded as many opportunities as he's been given to try and get himself straightened out.
If you're looking for a sympathetic angle for him, though, one of the discussions that's been brought up a few times is the hit that Vontaze Burfict laid on him a few years ago.
Okay, so let me stop you. Let me stop you then, because I've heard that too. They talk about CTE, and he may have CTE. If that's the case, then he shouldn't be on the field.
And that's
somebody
the thing.
Should step in and say, somebody's got to be the adult in the room here and say, okay, you know what? You do not pass enough cognitive tests for us to put you on the field, because all you're doing is destroying yourself. And then the next thing you know, we're seeing him on Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel, and now he wants to sue the league because they knowingly and willingly allowed him to play. No, you're done. Come off the field. If this is what you have, and if this is a claim you're going to make, you need to come with me, sir, and stand over here. You should not be on the field.
Yeah, and if that's the case, and we've seen so many instances of players with CTE and post-career. This is a clear-cut example of a guy having serious issues probably from football while he's still playing the game, and everybody sees them, and nobody is willing to step in and put an end to it. He could still catch a football and still score touchdowns, so teams keep signing him and putting him out there.
They don't care. This is the NFL, man. They've shown very little concern, and I fault the Players Association more than anyone else for not protecting their members better. But in this case, somebody's got to say enough is enough. And I don't know how you can get him to take a test that would qualify him as a person that's unfit to play. But I think that the league and the Players Association have to come to grips with this and do a better job of preventing situations like this from spawning into a disaster that they have now.
This is Lunch with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com each and every Monday at noon. We bring this show to you. And then if you want to see the replay, it's always available on our YouTube page. Go to YouTube and just search for Claibs Online. All of our videos are up there right now. Over 500 videos of interviews and press conferences from all of the shows here at Claibs Online to Cardinals and Blues press conferences, all available there for you at Claibs Online on YouTube. We here are powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Munganess St. Louis Acura, and also sponsored by this man, Ryan Kelly.
You know, the only thing faster than this supersonic golf cart are the closing times at thehomeloanexpert.com. Mortgage rates are in the twos, and we have a 21-day closing guarantee. Apply online today at thehomeloanexpert.com.
Ryan Kelly celebrating 12 years as the home loan expert. If you haven't seen on social media, he posted some pictures today of what his first office looked like and now just how he has expanded nationwide, all over the U.S. and all of the different places he has offices now, including the original right here in St. Louis. Claibs, speaking of St. Louis, SLU Billikens yesterday, they knock off Richmond in Atlantic 10 action. Red Panda was the halftime performance. Yuri Collins puts on as his best performance of his college career. So much going on there at the Jewel of Midtown yesterday afternoon.
It was a good win, consider, St. Louis U with the COVID issues had they gone 2 weeks without playing a game, and the last one they played left a bad taste in everyone's mouth against Auburn. It was nice to see them come out and get off on the right foot with regard to the conference. I got to be honest with you, the Atlantic 10 does not excite me for a lot of reasons. There's no real rivalry anywhere. St. Bonaventure is allegedly the best team in the conference. St. Bonaventure hasn't been good for 40 years, okay? I mean, they haven't been good since Bob Lanier was there, and all of a sudden now they found some grace. And if you've ever been in that part of the country in New York where St. Bonaventure is, you wonder why anybody would want to go there in the first place. With that said, the Billikens have to break through this year. And I know it's easy to say, well, we don't have Javante Perkins. Well, that means somebody else is going to get some playing time. And I think they've learned, at least I hope they've learned from some of their non-conference games and how to finish teams. But, at some point they've got to break through. I mean, you got a good point guard. Gibson Jimerson is a guy who, you listen to some people, they make him seem like he's Rick Barry. I'm not sure what else he can do other than shoot, because he's not a good defender. He's not a guy that creates his own shot, but he's a guy that you certainly need as far as giving you a perimeter game. And then you've got some other guys who are trying to fill the void of losing Perkins. But overall, I think they're a good team, but I think it's time for them to step up and try and even become a better team than what we've been expecting them to be over the course of the last few years.
SLU's next game is at home on Wednesday. They'll be taking on LaSalle. So tomorrow.
They haven't been any good since Lionel Simmons was there, and that was 1990.
You get we got a new episode of Two-Man Game coming to you tomorrow with Matt Rocchio and Bob Ramsey. They did one on New Year's Day previewing the game. And if you want to go back and watch any of that, video and audio, both available on claibsonline.com. Claibs, as we wrap up the show today, talk about the passing of two legends that we lost at the end of 2021. I know you and Howard
Betty
Richards
White and John Madden.
That would be the two. I know you and Howard Richards talked about John Madden in the latest Huddle Up with Howard this past weekend. I would imagine you and I have some overlap with our memories of John Madden, but different for how we remember him. You growing up as he was a coach in the NFL, Super Bowl winning coach, and then his time in the broadcast booth. And that's where I first got my first taste of John Madden. And then, of course, the video game too in his later career. But just the way that he kept reinventing himself to span different age demographics and different people throughout his entire life really is impressive.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know anybody who's even close to him that's had that sort of success. And he was good at everything he's ever done. I mean, he was a good coach, a very good coach, great analyst. He and Pat Summerall might be the best combination pro football's ever had. Summerall's demeanor, and it was funny because they just broke up Summerall and Tom Brookshire, and they were really, really good. But they had some, for lack of a better term, well, we have time to tell this story, right? It's the internet. So the story goes that they're in Philadelphia, Brookshire and Summerall, and they'd been out one night, and they were in one of those horse-drawn carriages. You know how you see downtown with just guys that's ride around. They'd had a few drinks, and they continued to drink and continued to drink. And so they get to the hotel and they convince the driver. They say, "Hey, come on and have one more drink with us." He said, "Well, I can't go. I got to watch the horse." One of them said, "Well, bring the horse with you." So they unbridle the horse and try and walk him through the lobby of this hotel, to the point where they tried to even put him on an elevator. At that point, the hotel called timeout. They called CBS and said, "We got a problem with your broadcasters." so they broke him up. And here comes John Madden. And I had a chance to work with him. He and Jack Buck did a few games together, and they had a spotter. Something happened to their spotter, and they needed one. And I'd done it before with Jack. And I ended up, that's how I got to know him, working with him and talking to him, during the game. Fascinating guy. And he was a guy who watched the line of scrimmage like I do. And, I was asking him questions, and he said, "What did you see on that play?" And it was a great discussion. He just had his first book that come out, and he autographed it for me. And he was a very nice gentleman to me. I run into him a couple other times since then. When we were doing the Rams broadcast, they did an exhibition game. He and Summerall were doing an exhibition game, and we had a chance to visit with him at that point as well. So, a wonderful man, did so much for the game. But, here's the other thing, Joe. You talk about the Madden game. What about all the beer he sold? There's two people that have sold more beer than any commercials in the world. Mike Shannon has sold more beer for Budweiser and Anheuser-Busch than any one human. And John Madden basically put Miller Lite on the map when he was selling beer. But when you think of the other things, fast acting, tenactin.
I was going to say, you talk about the Miller Lite for that. When it comes to commercials and John Madden, it's tough act, tough act and tenactin.
Exactly.
Like that is what I mean, he was the voice of that for years.
He put Miller Lite on the map. Okay. And it was at a time when Miller was in a beer war with Anheuser-Busch. And that's when Anheuser-Busch ramped it up, and they started putting out beer 24/7. I mean, they were going nonstop, and they were in this beer war. And they obviously ended up buying Miller when it was all said and done. But John Madden, nobody heard of Miller beer before John Madden, a Miller Lite rather. And what he did, along with Euchre, they had a really good campaign. They had him and Euchre and a few other athletes that had retired.
You go back and you watch some of those old beer commercials. The ones, there's one in a bowling alley. There's one, it's a softball game, and they're out there. And the cast that they put together for some of those commercials back in the day, the money that they must have spent on some of these, the softball one where Rodney Dangerfield's in it.
Yeah.
And
it was
John
a great
Madden,
campaign.
Rodney Dangerfield. Yeah.
It was a great campaign. But when you think about what he's done in order to teach the game, John Madden put some guys in the Pro Bowl. He loved linemen. I know there's been a lot of talk about Nate Newton. Leon that was his guy. When Leon got himself in a little trouble, John Madden was one of the first guys to say, "This guy's a Pro Bowler." And they became pretty good acquaintances. I'm not going to sit here and tell you they were having dinner together, but John would always look for Leon. Leon would always look for John. And Leon is a very shy guy, but he really believed in John Madden and felt he had a genuine interest at stake here. But, man, what a wonderful person. Just so great for the game. But here's something. I don't know if you noticed this yesterday. I don't know if you watched the beginning of the games when they said they wanted a moment of silence in honor of John Madden. Here's how it went. Ladies and gentlemen, we please now ask you to stand as we give a moment of silence to John Madden. Thank you. I mean, it was like, both times I saw it, I was like, wait a minute. What's wrong with my watch here? What's going on here? But I was taken by how quick this moment of silence took. But overall, he a fantastic person, and the game will miss him. And you know what? He created a generation of Madden wannabes. I mean, you can pick guys around pro football and college football who all have a little Madden-esque in them. And I'm not saying that's all bad, because, you know, you want to emulate the best. And that's what John Madden was. And again, when he and Summerall were working together, gosh, must watch TV. My opinion, the three best play-by-play guys for football: Ray Scott, Pat Summerall, Al Michaels. Those guys were the best. And you know what? I'll throw Joe in there because Joe has weathered a very lengthy career and seen a lot go on in the game. But those guys are really the Mount Rushmore of pro football broadcasters. Now, to Betty White. What's not to like about Betty White?
I want to hear, because I just know, and I've known this since it happened. I knew we were going to talk about it on the show today, and I knew that I was going to bring up the name Betty White, and you were just going to have some asinine story of how you met her once and you guys had dinner or went out for drinks or something. So let's hear it.
You know what? I met her one time at a party out in LA. A friend of mine, we went to this deal. Was it Golden Globes? It was either Golden Globes or Emmys. We went to the governor's ball. And so the person I was with, she said, "Hey, there's Betty White over there." I said that to her. I said, "Hey, there's Betty White over there." And I'm trying to act like I'm, you know, it is Robert De Niro. "Hey, Bobby, how are you?" You know, you want to act like you've been there, right?
Yeah.
And so I said, "There's Betty White." And she said, "You got to be kidding me. All these other people, and you looking at Betty White." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you know her?" And she says, "Yeah, I know her." So we go over and she introduces me to her. She couldn't have been nicer. I mean, she's a really small woman, but a very nice person. And that was my only brush with greatness with her. It was a 20-second conversation, if that long.
I mean,
but what she's done for entertainment, her demeanor and just being such a kind person. I don't know if you've heard the story. It started to circulate. I knew the story where when she had her TV show in the 50s, they did not want to have this black dancer on her show. And she was like, "What do you mean? He's the best dancer we have." And she insisted that he be on the show. His name was Robert Duncan. And he had a very successful career on stage. And if it wasn't for Betty White stepping up for him in a time where that wasn't popular, who knows where that guy would be today. But you never heard a bad word about her. I remember when she was married to Alan Ludden, who was the host of Password, which was a very popular game show at the time. And they seemed like the perfect couple. But yeah, you know, a lot of great memories about her and some of her roles in TV and movies and just stage itself. A person that was almost at 100. You know, she was only 99. Okay. She was just 99 years old. So she had a whole lot more living. But I guess God thought it was time for her to come on up to the big show and be part of that. And we're going to sorely miss her because she was the face of kindness and entertainment in our society as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, 2 weeks away. 2 weeks from today, she would have turned 100. I know People Magazine's already come out with their tribute or their celebration of her turning 100, and there was supposed to be a TV show that I imagine is going to turn into a tribute to her now for her 100th birthday as well. But you look at all the stories, and you mentioned just universally liked, not a bad thing said about her. Now that she's gone, trying to think who would be next on that list of somebody you just don't hear a bad thing about.
That's a great point. That's a good question.
I'd go Dolly Parton and everything now that Dolly has been doing charity wise in the Nashville area in Tennessee recently.
She'd be on that list. Yeah, that's a good one. I have to chew on that one a little bit because all the great ones, man, they're gone. But let me chew on that. That's a good start. That's a real good start. And you know what? We'd be remiss not to talk about Dan Reeves, who was a very good coach in pro football. And, you know, for people who don't remember, he's a hell of a football player for the Dallas Cowboys. A really good, fundamentally sound guy, a lot of character about him. Looked the part of a coach and spoke the part of a coach and had success in various places in his career. He died at 77, but he was a really good person and a really good player.
Claibs, as we wrap up the show today, we already talked about you and Howard Richards getting together later this week. What else do you have planned?
We'll talk some hockey later this week with Alex Ferrario. You mentioned we've got the two-man game coming up, and that'll be fun to hear those. I don't know if people have heard that and had a chance to watch it. Rammer and Matt Rocchio, have done a phenomenal job with just, if you're a basketball fan, you don't have to be a hardcore junkie, but they keep it simple, they keep you informed, and they have a lot of fun doing it. And I'm glad they're part of what we do. I'll
be joined recording tomorrow, but it'll be on Weekend Joe this week with Mark Madden, a radio host over in Pittsburgh, who has been a longtime voice out there, but used to be on the call for WCW World Championship Wrestling. And it was just announced last week that he and Ric Flair are going to be doing a show at the Hot Shots in O'Fallon during the Friday before the Royal Rumble coming up on January 28th.
And I'm going to miss that. You know what? So Ric Flair kind of crosses over with me because I remember him when he was Nature Boy Ric Flair. When he first broke in, he used to wrestle in St. Louis quite a bit, and it just,
he's always been the Nature Boy. He's still the Nature Boy.
He was he had it going on back in the day. He's one of those guys that you like to hate, but at the end of the day, he was pretty good at what he did. He's had some health issues, but he's had a resurgence. I'll tell you that ESPN 30 for 30 really kind of put him back on the map, and I'm glad because he has been one of the great ambassadors for the sport. He's a unique person. If you saw that documentary, it ain't all there, but you know what? In any regard, it's going to be fun to have him in St. Louis.
Is that enough to get you to fly back up from Florida for that?
No,
not even get to hang out with Ric Flair for a night.
You know what? I would have done that a few years ago because Rick liked to go hard, and so did I. But we both slowed down. I don't think that's going to get me back because he's only going to be in and out. I mean, he doesn't. I'm sure he's not rocking.
I don't know. You know what? I'm not sure. I think he might try to stick around for the weekend. I'll figure out if he's going to be.
Well, if you figure out if he's sticking around for the weekend, you can make it happen. You just never know.
All right, I will. We'll see what we can do for that. This has been another episode of Lunch with Claibs and Joe. We'll replay it later on this afternoon for anybody that might have missed it. But the podcast is going to be up in just a matter of moments on claibsonline.com or wherever you get your podcasts from, whether it's Spotify, Google, iTunes, or anywhere else. You'll find it all right there. So thank you again to our sponsors, Ameren, Illinois, Munganess, St. Louis Acura, and the home loan expert, Ryan Kelly. For Mike Claiborne, I'm Joe Roderick. We'll talk to you next Monday right here on claibsonline.com.
Every day, Ameren, Illinois works to deliver reliable energy throughout the state to on-the-go families, in-the-know grandparents, and busy students. But did you know we also have ways to manage your energy? Paperless billing, outage notifications, pick a due date, auto pay, and so much more. So no matter who you are or how you use your energy, there's an option that's right for you. Learn more at amerenillinois.com/options.